let's talk about progress reports. It is another form, and it might seem like we've got a lot of these checklists, but what we found is this progress report really avoids a lot of issues, and a lot of issues that can kind of compound and build up. So it's almost like taking the temperature of the client. You can get really busy and everything is going on and there's a lot of work going on, and you might not even realize that customer is becoming frustrated. So the perfect time is to sit down with them at the end of the week and say, I want to review the project and I want to check in with you. And so part of that is meeting them at the house. So you might be going back and forth on CoconTruck with your messages, and you might not even realize that maybe they're becoming frustrated with something. But when you get to that face-to-face and you really start asking them questions like, how do you think everything is going? What do you think of the install? And you can reassure them, like you can say, hey, this looks good to me. I just want to make sure you're happy with the color, that kind of stuff. It sets the temperature and it makes them feel like you care about them. So yes, it's another form to do, but there's a method behind it, like along with everything else that we do here. So what is this really going to be about? Well, you're just wanting to meet with the client, go through, the form is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to fill it out with the customer, the address, the date. You typically, if there's a lot of work being done, you want to do this every week and then if there's not a lot of work and there's work in between, you might not have to do it for 2 weeks or so, but you really want to be, it has to be within reason. If you've got an 8-week project and you only have 7 progress reports, that's fine. But if it's, you can't have 4. It has to be pretty realistic to how many weeks you're on the project. So what's happening is you're just going to describe some of the work that's been done, and they're going to sign off stating that they're okay with it, and that's kind of what here at the bottom. All completed and ongoing work on the project has been installed with satisfactory workmanship and material choice. So that's it's just kind of making you and the client talk, and it's really important because you're gonna avoid any you're gonna kind of avoid anything becoming a problem down the road, because you're going to check in and they might say, hey, I really don't like how this is installed here. Is that something that you can fix? And so at that point, you will go and you write down that on the project progress report, and you would say, okay, we are going to be fixing, whatever, this joint in the trim or whatever, or maybe a tile is uneven or something. And that usually it's going to calm them down and realize that you care. The other side of the whole progress report is that it also takes the time for you and the client to go through and really look at the work, and it's going to minimize your punch list. You hear of really long punch lists on bigger projects, and if you really keep up with the progress reports, your punch list is really going to be minimal, and you're going to catch any subcontractor with their deficiencies very quickly while they're still on site, instead of having them to have to come all the way back. So really important. It's kind of a good, forced stop. Let's look at the project. Let's look at what's been done, because when you've got 4 or 5 projects and you're running around and you don't set a time frame to really go line by line of what's happened, you're going to miss stuff. So that's kind of what this is for. And at the same time as you're going to be able to sit down with the client. And when they sign this off stating everything's good, it kind of gives you a little bit more, you can kind of relax, because they're not necessarily, they can't really come back, at the very end when you're asking for that final check and they're like, well, I don't like this. And you say, well, you signed off on it and everything was okay at that time. So it helps a little bit if there's any issues with people just trying to find issues. This eliminates it, and this has been tested, and it's actually really kept some of those difficult clients in where they need to be. So you know, pretty self-explanatory. You're going to upload these into co-construct when you're done, and give the client access to them so that they can see them. So there's everything is transparent. So that's progress reports. You will have those in your job packet. You're going to want to keep a bunch of copies, and really make sure you're explaining that you're going to be doing this on that project handoff. You've got to, right? You've got to manage that expectations. Like, hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm going to be meeting with you once a week, and we're going to go over what's been happening, and I want to know how you're feeling, and making sure that I'm doing a 5-star project management service. So it's just another tool in your tool chest.